right, so this morning I'm sitting with Kate Berry, the Managing Director of Huffer. Huffer's first release was in 1997, so it's about 26 years old, and Kate shared an article recently that there was a reference in the article of the Huffer Puffer, and when I saw that, it really brought back the warm fuzzies for me because I've got my own associations with the brand, and judging by the demographics of the podcast, you probably do too. So I wanted to sit with Kate and learn more about Huffer's journey and as a really successful New Zealand icon. So thank you for taking the time to sit with me this morning.
Oh, thank you.
So as Managing Director, what has your journey been with the brand?
It's been 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I started at a time where the business was teeny tiny. Mm-hmm. It was a very much loved brand, so very recognised around New Zealand. But it certainly didn't have the revenue to match its brand awareness, which is kind of strange because it had been going for 16 years by the time I joined. That's pretty typical of a New Zealand company that started by founders who passionately wanted to deliver their vision to the market. So the 16 years had been spent building brand without them knowing it. They didn't have a roadmap to do that. They didn't have a marketing plan to say that's what they should do. They just had a gut intuition and passion and love for the brand that they were creating. What came out of that was an extremely loved brand and a brand that appealed to a wide audience. I think that was what originally drew me in as well, because ultimately you want to work for a brand or a company that people like.
Yes.
And no one, there's no other clothing brand in New Zealand that I think emulates the passion and love that Huffer does. And it was through the caretaking of the founders to start with that occurred.
Yeah, definitely from my perspective as a consumer, it's got those connotations. You see the three dots, and you know, like as I said to you offline, I had a grotty student flat in Dunedin. The Huffer Puffer that was our mitigate against those horrible flats with the frost on the inside of the windows. And then over time, as I grew alongside the brand as well. Yeah. And that's something that probably a lot of us could resonate with.
Yeah. So 10 years ago, we were, in the article, it said selling about 400 Huffer Puffers or down jackets, and not. It wasn't purposeful. Those numbers weren't purposeful either. They just were what the numbers were. It was part of a winter range, and people did have this affinity with the Huffer Puffer. It was coined the Huffer Puffer, so it had. When I say a cult following, the numbers were teeny tiny. People knew about it. It was a high quality product, and it had come from the inception of the brand, the origination of the brand being developed in the snow, and was highly functional, and it had a really great look about it. So you could wear a warm jacket on the streets and not look like you were about to climb Mount Everest. So it's for the street warrior. And if I look back to that time where I joined, and the business wanted to grow, and you can only work with a brand in business that has that desire, and particularly because the founder Steve was still in the business and of course still is today. Those decisions have to be made in conjunction with those shareholders and owners. There was a desire to grow, and when you've got something so precious as this, which I always thought Steve did, it deserved to be bigger and for more people to enjoy what Huffer could deliver, particularly because we're from New Zealand. We employ Kiwis. We design everything here in New Zealand. Everything's designed from scratch. Everything is fitted on New Zealand models, the fit models. And all the adjustments are made here in New Zealand, and then we employ people in our retail stores as well to sell it, as well as many hundreds of people in our wholesalers as well. So it deserved more than what it was delivering at the time. And one of those particular strategic decisions was to go back to our roots and look at what we were really good at and what we were known for. And that's where the Huffer Puffer strategy began. It was the first time the company had a documented plan. And I think when you document something, then you can make it happen.
Yes.
And we made it happen quite quickly once we had decided that's what we wanted to do.
Well, the article that we were talking about, so it did say that you started 10 years ago with 400 jackets, and then you've just mentioned that it's happened really quickly. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, so the growth, once we decided that particularly Huffer Puffers and down jackets were a place we wanted to invest, meant that we either had to develop product and innovate in that category and sell it through indent and then purchase it. Or what we did do, which at the time we laugh about it now, but it was kind of not a very well thought through plan, but it was a plan. We just ordered 2,500 of the jackets that we had designed already, and with the spirit of let's just give this a go, let's utilise our knowledge that we already had to try and put these incredibly technical down jackets in the market, in distribution channels that meant Kiwis could buy them. And what you need in the background is really good salespeople with great relationships, which we had just employed, and the cash to pay for the jackets coming in without orders, and we did it, and we sold 2,500 the next year, and it was quite phenomenal. And I think we sat there going, actually, this is the right path for Huffer. We started in the snow. One of the founders with Steve was a professional skateboarder, and Steve was a professional snowboarder, and it was that skate culture that brought that innovation to the snow. So they wanted to wear in snowboarding jackets and pants that looked like that cool, like they did on the streets, skating. What better way to grow a business than from its original heritage?
Yeah, that's really exciting. And after the 2,500, the business continued to grow.
Yeah, it just snowballed from there. So I think we probably doubled every year up until kind of COVID times. Just before COVID, we probably were doing about 20,000 units. And then, we have a pre and post COVID, which a lot of businesses have. And we kind of lost 3 years in planning, development. Lots of our systems and processes were just put on hold. But one thing never left us, and that was to keep innovating. If I take us back to when we developed the Super Down jacket, that was developed off the need we saw in the market for a 100% waterproof outer jacket that could provide the insulation warmth of down, and no one was doing them in New Zealand, and we couldn't even find anyone really doing them globally either, predominantly because in those markets where innovation occurs, it doesn't rain. And it seems weird growing up in Auckland, and also the last few months. It simply doesn't rain in Europe in winter. It's cold, but it doesn't rain. So they don't need that technology, whereas here, particularly in the Upper North Island, it does. the super down fabrication I think it took us over a year to get just the fabrication right that could be sealed with the chambers, and then another year and a half of development to get the warmth out of it, because once you seal something in a 3-layer PU coated outer that is going to be water resistant or 100% waterproof fabric, you'd need to be able to also get heat from it. So we developed a backing to it that allowed the heat to come through. And some of those, we had this couch, I don't even know where the couch has gone now, but we had this couch, it was from I'm going to say it was from the early 70s or late 60s. It was, I think, an original Bauhaus design, a wooden frame that flicked from a couch to a bed. It wasn't a Bauhaus couch, it was probably some form of replica, but one of the arms was missing on the side of it. So we had this couch that was really unappealing. And we'd sit on the couch and talk about this mother of all down jackets. And we had so many laughs about it and what we needed to do to develop the fabric further, or the sealing technique, how much fill we were putting in, and we would have had hundreds of test samples come down by that stage. But the couch always remains in my burnt into my mind, because it was such a familiar place for us to end up to talk about the technology of this product that was really almost globally innovative. And you can do it on a couch with no arm. And for New Zealanders, we should all remember that. Yeah. You don't need, the fanciest office like in Silicon Valley, or, an expensive couch to sit on to develop innovation that really is world class.
Yeah, I've picked up a couple of things in what you're talking about. Innovation seems to stem right back to day dot. Yes. Being front foot of things. And another thing that you've touched on was when you had a plan, maybe it wasn't perfect, but you said, let's just do this. And so kind of for getting started and developing it and refining it as you go, rather than it needing to be perfect at the start.
Yeah, I think there's an element of leadership that requires just a test and learn philosophy. To do that, though, you need to understand the world isn't perfect, and some leaders, I think, my observation would be that they think the world is perfect and their people are perfect and product's perfect and the market's perfect, and you can write a SWOT analysis and it be correct. It's never correct after the day you write it. So we get channeled down this vanilla path coming out of university of how you should traditionally manage a business and a product lifecycle, and how to grow a business and how to manage structure to a growing business. But in the end, it actually just comes down to people, and it comes down to what you're passionate about and what you innately know and feel. And if you innately know and feel it's the right thing to do, and you're okay to give it a go, and you know that if it's not right, you'll just tweak it, then it opens up the world for businesses like this. And I don't think Huffer ever didn't have that philosophy. I think it most definitely did before I arrived. It just didn't do anything about it. Just there was no need, there was no want to grow back then to the extent we have now. Definitely giving it a go and knowing what your risks are. 2,500 jackets was a big risk for us at the time, but if you think, well, we could sell them to 20 customers and they'd take 100 each, if the worst case was we had to sell them at cost, well, would we be able to get rid of them? Yeah, probably. So you do have to measure your risk, but I do think the power of businesses our size is that we are very agile without having to put an agile strategy around ourselves. But big business would benefit from looking at businesses like ours to look at the techniques that we use. We don't do big presentations about strategy, but we do big presentations about product, because we know that it's really uniquely important to our business.
You touched on people a minute ago. So what sorts of things are you doing in-house to get the best out of, the people around you, your staff, your suppliers, your stakeholders? Obviously people is quite central. So how do you navigate those relationships?
Yeah, people are the key to Huffer. We develop product with people. We refine it. We bring it to market, and we sell it with people. So yeah, people are key to our plan, and having passion in our people is really important. I talk to the team yesterday. We have a team meeting every week, and we're in pay review cycle, annual pay review cycle, and I just reminded everyone that hard work does beat talent every time if talent doesn't work hard. And I know that's a famous quote, but it is one that I've used all my career. We're not a team of individuals who are so talentful that we ignore the fact that we're a team. We put emphasis on effort and loyalty. And those people who thrive here are the ones that drive their own work and passionately take it on like it is their own. We have a good strategy, a great strategy now, and I think people understand that strategy, so they know that what their part is in delivering the strategy, and it's really clear when people understand that we can get the best out of them.
Yeah, and so communication. So communication, you've referred to your strategy several times. It seems like a central navigating beacon for you so that everyone's pulling the ship in the same direction. So communication obviously goes hand in hand with that strategy.
Absolutely, and communicating all the things you don't want to communicate as well. Yeah, so there's no point hiding from some of the things that happen in business. They happen. So we share a lot here. For example, the team see our full P&L down to, a profit level. We tell them how much a store build's going to cost us and how much cash is left at the end. It's about, I guess, buying into the whole business. They don't just have a part to play, they are a part of the whole. And sometimes communication is hard, and we are in the process of moving offices. We've grown out of this space, and our lease comes up. And part of that is hard because people don't necessarily want to hear that they're moving. There's a change element that you have to manage. And I did acknowledge that at the team meeting this week to say, we will talk about the spaces that we're looking at, and it's not for you to worry. Every time we mention a location, to worry about how you're going to get there, or if it's on the inner link, and whether you can still take a bus or not. Just use it as an opportunity to know that we are telling you. And then when the final decision is made, then you're not shocked because you've gone through the journey, and then we'll work with you on how you get to work, where you park your car, where you're going to have lunch, how you're going to get out of there and back onto the motorway. All of those things that make our lives easier in Auckland in particular, we will work with you on. But, change is difficult. Even growing a business, it inevitably forces change on people because you go from, either having a mix of products that is a certain mix or a store mix that is a certain mix into another element and a focus in a different place, and that is change. We don't do things like we used to 10 years ago because we are bigger now, and therefore we're doing something different now. And ultimately, I think, change is evolution, and when you evolve, you hopefully learn and grow, and you've made so many mistakes that you know how to either not make those mistakes again, or when you're in the mistake again, you know how to get yourself out of it. But it doesn't mean that you've covered every risk of error or mistake. And I think if you're not apologising, then you're not probably pushing hard enough either.
Yes. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and you just have to manage the apologising, right? Like, you don't want to apologise every week to your wholesale customers or to whoever, a brand partner. But, a little bit of apologising in business, and particularly in New Zealand in a business that's growing, I actually think it shows that you're prepared to deliver a plan that is best for your own business. And particularly in New Zealand, we're a small market. We've got 5 million people. And if you're not pushing the bounds in New Zealand, then what do? We send everything offshore and sell it in Australia or the States or wherever else. And that could, in Kiwis' eyes, make us more successful. What that does is it means we pay tax in other countries. So it just means the governments in those countries are getting more from us. Yes. Do I think that's best for a New Zealand company? No, I don't. I think having a strong base in New Zealand and a really strong business and paying tax in New Zealand and giving back that way is exactly what businesses like us should do. It is interesting that when you grow a business, in particular a business that's much loved, a brand that's much loved like Huffer, lots of people have their own unique ownership of it.
Yes.
So, yes, you're a student in a flat 15, 20 years ago, and you have a unique passion and energy and ownership of the Huffer Puffer. And we have those stories all the time. Mm-hmm. And if we were growing in a country like Australia or the States, I'm pretty sure industry would celebrate it. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately in New Zealand, we still get a lot of negative feedback on our growth. Mm-hmm. And I do think that's a tall poppy issue, where instead of just celebrating the fact that it's a New Zealand business, that's all in the control of it sits in New Zealand, we're not owned by anyone other than just normal people, normal Kiwis. We employ 200 odd people, and then obviously our wholesale partners employ hundreds more. Instead of celebrating that, sometimes people either just don't know how to react to us not being in a box that maybe they thought we were in, or just simply they don't want to see business succeed. Which is weird.
Beyond a certain level.
Beyond a certain level.
When you're doing
totally.
okay and it's safe and it's tame.
Yeah.
And then there is that cut-off point where whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. Not that I want to buy a Porsche, because I don't. It's not my thing. But I could never turn up here in a car like that.
Yes.
Or to a wholesale customer.
Yes.
You would in the States.
Yes.
And I would love to see New Zealand embrace that, and particularly leaders in New Zealand business embrace it, and say we're only successful because we have successful brands and businesses, and they're run well, and they're healthy, and they can innovate, because that's where innovation comes from.
Yes. Yeah. I'm fascinated. Some really, really amazing topics through there. So where is Huffer going now?
So we have a very entrenched plan to stay in New Zealand. Pre-COVID, we had quite a bit of business overseas, or business emerging overseas. We just want to focus our energy and innovation into the New Zealand market. We've got one store in Australia, and we may have another couple in Melbourne, because that's a great market for us. It's cold like New Zealand, but we do want to invest in New Zealand. My vision would be that every household was kept warm with a Huffer jacket. And I would love New Zealand households to go, yeah, that's a great vision, and why would I not? Like, our product is one of the best in the world, and we employ hundreds of Kiwis to design it here and focus on New Zealand. We have a great mental health foundation association. We were their first brand who publicly supported them. And although that seems strange now, because mental health awareness is a topic that most companies at least feel comfortable talking about now, they certainly didn't 7 years ago when we approached them to say we'd really like to work with you on mental health, raising mental health awareness. We don't have the answers, but we have a voice and a network and a population that follows us that we think would really benefit from having this discussion normalised. And, you know, the more investment we can make in those aspects of New Zealand society just generally makes us a better place to live. And business has a responsibility to do it.
Sorry. Wow. Yeah, this is just so amazing that how far-reaching your vision is. It's not just we're going to make really awesome clothes, but you're looking after your people. You're innovating and thinking about the future and the impact that those innovations have on the industry globally. You're thinking about the staff. You're thinking about the community around you, and it's so much more than just really awesome gear, which and that possibly contributes to the longevity of the company.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, over the years and now, you know, sometimes we have a little laugh in our management team that we probably shouldn't have done what we did, you know, invested so much money into designing a particular thing, but we really wanted to do it. And it just kind of takes over because we are so creative here. We do things for the right reasons, not because we should do them. And we do them often because they are right for the brand rather than the right 100% right move for the business. It might cost us more to do a partnership with a artist, but that is part of our core value.
Yeah. Okay. And so what is the secret sauce of Huffer?
The secret sauce of Huffer is focusing on ourselves and being innovative ourselves and not looking at the market. So we know who we are. We have a huge amount of confidence in a humble way of who we are, and we don't get derailed by others. And, you know, the team passionately work on their seasonal designs and capsules, and we call them industry-wide injections, little groups of product going into the market with a theme at a different time than a normal seasonal range. And sometimes I laugh because I go, no one's looked at what other people are doing, which is fine. And we just get the most creative, innovative product out of it. We did a wonderful collab, which we at Huffer call hanging out with, so that's unique in itself. We go and hang out with someone rather than collaborating with them. Because when you hang out with people, they tell you all sorts of things about their own lives and how they've grown up and what influences them. And out of that, we get the creativity. We did a wonderful hanging out with a artist in Wellington, which we launched in April. She goes by the name of Studio Bon. And, you know, if I look at that art creation and how the team internally translated it into product, it's just fascinating. You know, we don't do ROIs. And if we did, we wouldn't do them because they just tell us the wrong thing. But what we do is we just passionately know what's right for ourselves, and we look internally to find that magic.
Amazing. Well, we referenced this article a few times in the recording, so I'm going to leave a link because there's lots of stuff in there we didn't talk about that is just something that Huffer should be super proud of, because there's all kinds of accomplishments within this short article. So I'm going to leave a link to that and to Huffer's website so you can check out the latest gear. And Kate, thank you for being so candid with me and spending time with me this morning.
Thanks for having me.